Bismillah was-salatu was-salam ala Rasulillah amma ba'd. Due to the widespread misunderstanding of An-Nasheed in Islam, it is necessary to give the proper attention to it. So I took an article by Dr. Saalih as-Saalih rahimahullah entitled A Look at An-Nasheed, and this article can be taken from his website at understand-islam.net in the article section. So Dr. Saalih as-Saalih rahimahullah, he began by saying, in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. In the pre-Islamic and early Islamic history, An-Nasheeds involved wholesome poems about battle victories, wisdoms, courage, etc., chanted in an unorchestrated fashion, without the accompaniment of musical instruments, except for the duff, similar to the tambourine but without bells, or the cymbals, which was legally permitted for women on special occasions. During the 2nd century after Hijrah, chanting of dua, remembrances, crept into the Ummah by the innovations of the mystic Soofees, who in turn took it from the Christians. It was then called a taghbir. All of these forms were denounced by the early scholars of Islam, including Imam al-Shafi'i, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim, Ibn Kathir, Ibn Rajab, and many others. May Allah have mercy on all of them. The Soofees centered most of their methodology of worship on congregational tarannim, singing by way of trilling or quavering and prolonging the voice with a musical sound, resembling the Christians in their churches. Then the Soofees began to introduce physical movements during remembrances and dua, close to those practiced by the Jews. Rarely do you witness a Sufi hadra without these innovative practices. Nowadays, the matter is not limited to the Sufi adepts. Many Muslim parties have innovated special bands for the emotional arousing of their followers and for the Ummah at large. Much of what is being practiced with these An-Nasheed does not escape at least one of the following observations: involving more and more people, especially children, keeping them busy with what could be, least to say, of a lesser benefit. Okay, that was the first one. Number 2, An-Nasheed are accompanied with musical toning and chanting, Eastern and Western beats, in the name of culture and quote-unquote tradition. This is becoming more and more apparent, with bands competing in their selection of words and beats. Number 3, remembrances of Allah are introduced in these An-Nasheed in ways clearly resembling and intoning and chanting of the Christians in their churches. Number 4, the congregational chanting and singing that takes place resembles to a greater extent that which goes on in the churches of the mystic Soofees in their singing circles. Former stars are being more involved with the mystic Sufi ways through so-called Islamic An-Nasheed, quote-unquote. Some bands sing the infamous shirk poem known as the Burda, which involves shirk levels of exaggeration in the status of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 5, luring the children to sing, especially the young girls, imitating the bass of the infamous Muslim and non-Muslim singers. Number 6, replacing the Qur''an with the so-called An-Nasheed in the da'wah to the young, claiming that they do not respond to the Qur'anic texts, therefore legitimizing their use. The same is done with the Sunnah, eventually turning people away from what constitutes the true life for the believers. Number 7, in many of these singing circles, musical instruments and intoning are gradually taking hold, something known to be forbidden in Islam, except for the duff for women. Number 8, the emergence of so-called professional singing groups performing at weddings, parties, schools, and the like. Number 9, development of so-called more advanced ways of video, singing as a modern way of contemplating and reflecting on the creation of Allah. Number 10. Allowing taking pictures of young girls during different presentations of songs in itself is a fitna. Fitna is affliction and trial. And in opposition to the Sharia, some make movies and records of these young girls singing on special occasions. Number 11. Many things that are untrue are presented in these songs through acting or through exaggeration in praise. Number 12. If you examine many of these songs, you will find a lot of them focusing on the tawheed of lordship only, something even the mushriks confess. In other words, matters pertaining to the signs of Allah in the creation, His running of the affairs, Him being in full authority, and the like. Number 13. Transgression against the Sharia in the form of acting roles. You see a child taking the role of Salah, saying, I am the Salah, and these are my merits. Another takes the role of fasting, and so on. Worst of all, those who claim to represent the Qur''an, yet we know that the Qur''an is the uncreated speech of Allah. Number 14. Assuming in some cases the movements and walks of some of the losers from the known male and female singers. Imagine when this is done while chanting the remembrances of Allah. Number 15. Calling these An-Nasheed Islamic itself is a transgression, especially when they call it an art, quote unquote, and a means of education and nourishment for the da'wah. This is an innovation in deen, and this from the deen of the innovators of the Soofees. The companions chanted poetry of wisdom, courage, generosity, and of maruha, describing good character, and not in congregations. They chanted poetry sometimes while working or during night travel. None of them claimed this Islamic. Rather, everything takes its own particular ruling, whether it is innovated, allowable, recommended, obligated, disliked, or forbidden. Therefore, that which may be allowable of it we don't call Islamic, because if it is called so, people would think it to be from the deen. And to label any matter as Islamic requires textual proofs. In fact, Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah referred to them as Sufi singing, and a similar conclusion was reached by Shaykh Abdul Aziz al-Shaykh, the Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia, as well as by Shaykh Bakr Abu Zaid and Shaykh Abdul Aziz al-Raji, and other scholars. May Allah preserve them all. The following question was raised to the Shaykh Muhammad bin Saalih al Uthaymeen rahimahullah. What is the ruling concerning An-Nasheed? Is it permissible for the caller to Allah to listen to Islamic An-Nasheed? The Shaykh rahimahullah responded, in the past I listened to these Islamic An-Nasheed, and there was nothing therein which shuns away. After listening to them recently, I found them to be rhythmic with delectation and entertaining, like the songs accompanied with musical instruments. Accordingly, I don't see that it is permissible for people to listen to them. However, if they come natural without musical accompaniment and without delectation or entertainment, then there is no harm in listening to them. Still, however, it is conditional that, firstly, the person does not make this a habit, listening to them all the time, and second, make not that which benefits and admonishes the heart restricted to them. Because if he makes of this a habit, he will abandon that which is more important. Moreover, in doing so, he will relinquish the greatest admonition, and it is that which came in the Book of Allah and in the Sunnah of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if he listens to them